Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, is one of my favorite games. From the storyline, weapons, and force abilities, there's a lot of fun to be had when playing through this game. The Kotor series people have fond memories of, myself included. I want to revisit this game, but with a twist, melee only. Let's set some ground rules before we start the challenge. Starting off, I'm only allowed to use melee weapons. There are plenty of melee weapons such as lightsabers and vibroblades. This will be interesting to try since it will be really ineffective against groups of enemies, especially when it's a mixed group of blaster and melee users. Because melee weapons are the only things that can be used, all grenades, blasters, and force powers cannot be used. In the previous round of Kotor videos, I gave myself an exception to the aforementioned rule by using non-damaging force powers, such as battle meditation, force heal, and so on. This and the previous Kotor 1 video, I did not use any. No implants, visors, gauntlets, shields, and belt modifiers are allowed. This will make things much more difficult for our main character alongside his allies. The game will be played on the difficult difficulty, which is equivalent to hard mode in other games. The difficulty cannot be changed during the run. Lastly, we must beat the game. Kotor 2 has many planets and things to do on each one. We have to conquer each challenge as we go. Previously, I went through the Kotor series with blasters only, which was a blast and a headache all in one, especially the first game. Last year, I released the Kotor 1 version of this challenge, so check that out if you haven't seen it before. One quick thing I want to mention is that I will be showcasing the challenge alongside the story in this video. This is meant for those who are unfamiliar to the game and its storyline. A few years ago, I played Kotor 1 and 2 for the first time, and was extremely happy I wasn't spoiled the story beforehand. Because of this, I feel it would make the video much more interesting to talk about the story and challenge side by side. Make sure to smash the like button, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Without further ado, let's get into the run. As I loaded into the game, I fiddled with the character's appearance, allocated levels, and upgraded feats. Strength is going to be the main level we will be focusing on, since it scales with melee weapons. Persuasion is very useful when interacting with party members and NPCs, so I got that up to a solid 4. While melee only may seem like a straightforward challenge, with these modifiers in place, things are going to be super challenging. Grab some popcorn and snacks as we delve into Paragus. A ship drifts in space, specifically the Ebon Hawk, one of the many icons of the Kotor games. We were given the option to go through the prologue, which can yield some resources. Generally, I usually skip this, but since it has been a while since the last playthrough, I said why not? More the merrier. The ship and its crew badly damaged, E3 manages to dock the ship at the Paragus mining facility, crucial supplier of fuel for nearby systems. With us badly injured, our main character is placed in a Bacta tank to heal him. After some time, a strange voice can be heard calling to us, so we awaken. Investigating the nearby medical room produced some useful items such as medkits, alongside information. Long story short, everyone seems to suddenly disappeared. We'll have to investigate further to uncover this. As I was going through the morgue, a woman suddenly stood up and spoke to us. It reveals that it was her voice we heard in the Bacta tank. Perhaps we have been trained to hear such things. Freya says that we were badly attacked, and we were the only survivor. Sooner or later, we converse about the state of the facility, where everyone is, and why we both somehow survived. He questions if we are a Jedi because of it. In the end, we make a plan to escape the facility, but first we need to find out more about what's going on. For those who are unfamiliar to the Kotor series, let me break down a few things for you to better understand combat in this game. This game is a constantly moving D&D turn-based style game. What does that mean? Well, technically this is a turn-based game, with one side performing one action, then waiting for a response, rinse and repeat. The gameplay is fluid, but there are options for slowing down the game with the pause button. Kotor 2 massively enhanced combat, adding new ways to tackle enemies. The biggest addition are the various stances. While we don't have any lightsaber forms, these will be massive later on. In the bottom left is the action bar, where we are able to select attacks, force powers, consumables, and so on. Since this is a non-force power, implants, visors, gauntlets, and belt modifiers run, we'll have to avoid some parts of it. Saves are manual, and so careful consideration is necessary. No more than a handful of times these games have crashed, and so if I was in a saving mood, it was very, very helpful. Now this is just some of the basics, as I don't want to bombard you guys with useless info. Expect me to talk about and explain more things throughout the video. Nearby to the administration computer, there were numerous droids aiming for our playable character's demise. Once they are defeated, we are now able to interact and open a nearby door. Upon entering, we find someone being held prisoner. Conversing with him, we learn that his name is Atten. He has been stuck in the cell for some time, with no contact since the droids took over the facility. The conversation switches to Revan and past events, and the two discuss the state of the galaxy. What happened to him? Was the galaxy saved? I always enjoy talking to Aden about this, seeing other things from the first game pop up. I won't spoil much now, but let's just say in this playthrough I discovered something major for the first time. Since the first game is my favorite of the pair, I like seeing the callbacks. Eventually we ally with Aden, since ours and Krea's goals align for the time being. Interacting with the console again, we are able to communicate with T3, the droid that saved us in the prologue. This section I always dread getting to, more so just the droid only sections in each of the games. It didn't help that this is a melee only challenge, and T3 is only able to use blasters and special weaponry like flamethrowers. Because of this, I booked it straight past each enemy, avoiding them to complete the objective as fast as possible. The difficulty is quite evident in these sections, even though this is quite early on. The high damage will only get more and more extreme. One of the many fun and challenging aspects of this difficulty. Once we reach a console on the lower floor, T3 is ambushed by an unknown foe. Back at the main console, Aten and the playable character hope that T3 can pull off their request to open the sealed hatch. Ultimately, it does open, but we now must go down into the tunnels below to cross the facility. This is where most of the chaos in the facility is happening. Aten thinks we are either bold or crazy for going down there. Numerous droids were roaming about. Corpses of workers, clinging to desperation, are mutilated all over the floor. We clear them and activate the console. Let me quickly mention the hard difficulty and what it does. The biggest is that the player will take 50% more damage compared to normal difficulty. If an enemy has a weapon dealing 1 to 10 damage and it rolls a 10, then you will be dealt 15 damage. Next, the playable character can be hit with critical damage. In the easy and normal difficulties, this is not applied to the damage output of enemies, but on difficult difficulty, that all changes. This is one reason I really like to make the playable character super tanky. There are a bunch of other changes that this difficulty entails, so I implore you to check them out. I linked this great explanation from this Reddit user. It's both easy and quick to read. Because we defeated the droids in the lower levels, destroyed the console that used a voice printed ID in order to pass, we were able to walk outside the facility using a spacesuit. One of the many improvements that this game did was massively increasing the walking speed. I always talk about this when I get to Kotor 2, but I just feel like I have to talk about it because it's just such a big deal. In Kotor 1, there was this one section on Manon's ocean surface that was just the worst each time I got to. I'll put it up on screen now just so you can see the differences between the walking speeds. It's actually it's a welcome change. As we were outside the facility, a damaged Republic vessel comes to the station, then this cutscene plays. It is both awesome and crazy how the limitations of the original Xbox still yielded two of the greatest games of all time. While I do enjoy the Fallen Order cutscenes and story, nothing beats the Kotor story. This next section is my favorite in the Paragus mining facility, because it's both incredibly cool, yet sad to see. What am I talking about? Well, there's so many fun fights with droids, some freeze the player, but there is some added tension in each encounter. Loot is abundant here. Ties into the sad part. This is the dormitory section for the facility, and lockdown procedures went into place. Most people gathered here, only to succumb to poisonous gases. Some of the final moments of the people can be seen on holodiscs, showcasing the brutal nature of this incident. And some of the loot was in poisoned areas, specifically on their bodies. I did have to endure the poison damage. Since we basically can't equip anything that's not a melee weapon and or armor, masks are just gonna screw us over too. So we will take some poison damage. Now there's a lot that I could talk about regarding niche gameplay mechanics, like workbenches and lab stations, but instead I'll just give a few sentences to simply explain them. Workbenches act as upgrade areas for armor and weapons. 3 aspects of melee weapons can be enhanced here, and then 6 for lightsabers. Lab station lets the player create med med packs, and other items from chemicals collected. Out of the two, this was the most useful, since Force Heal cannot be used with a parameter set at the beginning, making med packs extremely important in this run. At both types of stations, the player is able to break down items, which yield components for that specific station. After the ship docks, Kreia comes to us warning the playable character of the impending danger, stressing that we should leave sooner rather than later. With that in mind, we return to Aten, only to find an HK assassin droid stopping us from leaving. Long story short, this droid killed everyone in the facility by setting the droids rogue and poisoning the workers.
As my sweet mother always said, son, if one hostage is good, two are better. And three, well, that's just good business.
This wretched droid needs to pay for his treachery with his motherboard. Kreia and Aten and our playable character charge into battle, and ultimately it's over almost as soon as it started, though Aten and Kreia got destroyed in the process. With the droid destroyed, the team sets their sights on the Harbinger, the recently docked Republic ship, hoping to get information from the main console. This is when the dialogue tree really starts to open up to the player, and with their actions having more effects. For instance, certain dialogue options will better or lower another ally's opinion of you. This is useful for a few reasons. I'll talk about this more so in the upcoming Kotor series a lot more, so stay tuned for that. For now though, I had to deal with the numerous Sith assassins lurking about. This is one reason I really like to have one party member with a high awareness stat, as it helps in situations like these. In the end, Darth Sion confronts us. Kreia forces us to press on. She deals with this threat herself. Strangely, when Sion cuts off her hand, our character feels this as well. Why is that? Well, stick around and let's uncover the story together. Once T3 is rescued and champions 3 separate mine explosions.
Good soldiers follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders.
And the team arrive at the Ebon Hawk, where they are ambushed by Sith troopers. One very useful tip I learned after my second playthrough, aka the Blasters Only challenges, was from a commenter. Basically, if you let the Sith board your ship, you are able to earn XP from them, maximizing your potential level by the end of the game. It's also just a really fun sequence, so I enjoyed doing this. Thanks again for your helpful comments over the years. If you have any useful tips and tricks that you've picked up on these games over the years, I'd be interested in hearing. Whether there is a niche exploit or a memorable moment, I'd be happy to read through your replies. We end our time on Pragus as we were attacked when escaping, telling Aten to not fire. It doesn't matter anyway, since the enemy ship fires, exploding the whole facility. This is definitely going to have some repercussions. On the ship, Kreia, Aten, T3, and our character converse on recent events, plans for the future. It's revealed that the Sith were sent to stop us, since they believed us to be a Jedi. The destruction of Pragus will hinder Telos and other systems nearby, as the fuel will need to be found elsewhere. The more you play these games, the more you truly appreciate the story and dialogue. Kreia is someone that I seem to enjoy more and more with each playthrough. The wisdom and deceit in her words I always found fascinating. This is when she drops one of the hardest lines in the whole game.
True. But as one trained in the Force, you know that true coincidences are rare.
We talk further about the Jedi and our relationship with them, where are they located, where are the Jedi, and so on. There are so many things that I will be unable to show and talk about regarding this game, so I implore you to check out the VODs channel for this challenge and other challenges I post. Here you can find the full, unedited streams from these games. KOTOR 1 Blasters Only, Sekiro No Deaths, Halo Wars Infantry Only, can all be found there and more. Thank you for your continued support. Now let's transition to Telos Citadel Station. Because the Paragus mining facility was destroyed, Lieutenant Gren and the rest of the Telosian security forces detain us as they investigate what occurred. They believe our ship to be responsible since we were in that sector when it occurred. As they are taking us to jail, a mysterious woman approaches the Ebon Hawk. We'll have to see what her deal is later since we are in a bit of a bind now. Once the TSF have left the jail, and some time has passed, Bounty Hunter slyly enters, hoping to cash out on the prize on our heads. This part I always find super hilarious, since your team just wails on this dude with nothing but their fists. I guess they're just built differently. After some back and forth with Lieutenant Gren, speaking about the mining facility, we were able to leave. In our residence on this planet, the Telosian Restoration Project and Zerka Corporation speak to us, asking for our aid. This is one of the many big choices the player will get to choose in the game. Certain actions, such as supporting one group versus the other, will yield more light side or dark side points respectively. For example, saying something evil to a party member will yield less dark side points than completing a dark sided task. In all of my runs so far, I've gone with aiding the Telosian Restoration Project, I personally found it to be a fun string of missions, alongside getting a decent reward at the end, though in this challenge it proved not to be that useful. Instead, it was because it was a fun way to go. Then we learned the tragic reality of our situation. As we approach the entertainment module 81, where weapons and items are stored, the droid worker reveals that they have lost our ship and transportation. Don't know how, but now we are going to have to figure out how to get our ship back, alongside leaving this rock. I went around speaking with NPCs and gathering side quests and useful information. As this is going on, I want to talk about a few things. I'm sure some of you have been asking this yourselves. Save states in the original Xbox display window. I mentioned save states earlier in the video, briefly talking about them, and how important they are going to be in the run. Saving is always important in games, but especially when games want the player to manually save. As there are a few areas that are auto-saved, managing save slots is important. On one hand, too little saves will be costly time-wise, as the Kotor games, in my experience, are a bit buggy from time to time. Then on the other hand, too much will be overkill. Saves will then need to be deleted often, aka more time spent. Basically, what I'm trying to say is to be frugal with your saves. There have been numerous times across both games, something happened that bugged out my game, causing me to then have to revert to a 30+ minute old save. One moment that will stick with me forever was this one section on Mourning where I used Force Lightning and just absolutely destroyed my game. Now some of you may be like, why is this game not going to the edge of the screen? Well, this game is being emulated on an Xbox One, using the display window of the original Xbox. Now personally, I really enjoy getting the raw version of these games, compared to modding them like crazy for HD textures and so on. This is one reason I always enjoy Most Wanted on the 360. That piss yellow filter is just chef's kiss. There's just something special about going back to these old games and playing it as it was meant to be played, or nearly meant, just with modern hardware, since old games and consoles are pricey. Now I do like to mod games from time to time, but generally I like to keep things vanilla. That's just my opinion. In the future I would like to expand the channel a bit and do some modded Kotor and Elden Ring runs. Let me know if that's something y'all would like to see. Eventually I reached the Television Restoration Effort HQ and spoke with Chodo Habat, the leader of the Ithorians here. During the conversation, it's revealed that we can help each other. Our party can help Telos rebuild, and Chodo can help us reestablish our connection to the Force. Though this is useless in this run, since Force powers and so on are not allowed. We accept Chodo's terms.
Excellent.
Now must protect a droid as it's being delivered. As we enter the hangar, our party members speak and talk with the TSF members and the droid, prepping for its departure. This is when we are ambushed by thugs, and so a massive fight ensues. For this certain challenge, as we are unable to use Force powers, I like to pause at the start and throughout the encounter, making sure no Force powers were chosen and only melee attacks were selected. In the end, we fend off the thugs and safely return the droid to the Ithorians. This is when the difficulty really started handing my butt to me. Enemies will just mess my party up in an instant if I'm not paying attention. Thankfully, a commenter in a previous video suggested for me to do something that would make situations like this much easier. My very first KOTOR video, aka the Blasters Only Challenge, would often heal using the action menu. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No, healing that way does have its advantages, but often is a hindrance. Now, healing from the menu, on the other hand, is much more time efficient and gets the most out of each character's turn, since it bypasses a turn altogether, since there is no animation from that menu. Because we were able to safely transport the droid from the hangar, we were now able to sneak into the Zerka mainframe. Initially, I spoke with a Zerka member in the cantina, who was quick to spill some useful information. Followed up with a visit to Chano, maintenance worker for droids.
You have something that belongs to me.
Thankfully, after some,
I call it aggressive negotiations.
we were able to retrieve his droid credentials. We'd now be able to convince the Zerka droid to follow us. At this point, we do not have the best or even good weapons, and so we need some better damage. Until we get something better, upgrading armor and weapons from the workbench will have to suffice. Even the lowest upgrade will have a great impact during fights. Another mission where I get to walk around as a droid. Fun times. With the droid mission complete, Chodo thanks us for our services. Now he says that he will repay us with transportation to Telos' surface, alongside restoring our connection to the Force. He mentions Bao-Dur, someone that could help locate our ship. As we are leaving to board the ship, mercenaries invade the Ithorian compound, hoping to put an end to Chodo. There were a lot of mercenaries, and so I had to carefully maneuver through each situation. Eventually, we were able to stop the mercenaries, and once again, Chodo is grateful for our help. He offers a reward, but we decline, as we did this out of the good of our hearts, and to get the light side mastery down the line. I'll talk more about that later. As we enter the hangar area, we briefly speak with the droids from the Zerka quest, then hop aboard the shuttle, bound for the planet's surface. Fortunately, during our descent, massive AA turret noticed us, causing us to crash below. Reuniting with our main character's war buddy Bowder, we speak about our current situation and catch up since the war. When Revan and Malak sought to stop the Mandalorians, our character followed them, against the Council's wishes. Bowder will be a great addition to our roster. Now let's investigate the surrounding area, see what the enemies have to offer, and how to get off this bloody rock. Going through Telos' surface will be difficult, especially with no force abilities, implants, visors, gauntlets, shields, and belt modifiers. Let's talk about the challenge so far, plans for late game, and so on. Melee only has been an interesting experience so far, similarly to the first game. On paper, melee only seems to be easy, but really it is quite difficult. Compared to a quote-unquote normal run, the main character and his allies would have some sort of ranged option, whether that was a blaster or force lightning. Because of that, blaster enemies will laser us from afar as we slowly inch closer to engage. Groups of enemies are hard to deal with compared to using grenades or force abilities. With that in mind, the party will usually get hit a few times as there are more than 2 enemies per party member. Then there's the difficulty. With our characters receiving more damage, each encounter had to be methodically planned. With healing tied to our limited med packs, I tried not to engage with enemies unless things were dire. Really nice having force heal in a run, well not in this one. But yeah, it's a super useful ability. Team selection is important, just as careful consideration of leveling up each character. Not all characters are equal, and some excel in areas where others are deficient. Mandalore, for instance, will be great for this run, since he has a higher strength scaling than others. With the restrictions, our party members will deal slightly less damage, alongside receiving more. Though our saving grace is we are allowed to use armor. We still have plenty of the game to go through. It's nice to check in and talk about how things are going. Sooner or later, we make it inside the base, near the mercenary camp. Poisonous gas, turrets, and droids are some of the many concerns in this place. At the very least, there's a shuttle here. Just gotta figure out how to get the power on now. Exploit this bug where party members will continually be revived when interacted with a terminal or location jump. This is very useful, especially when one is low on heals like I was. This can be applied in many different situations, and has been a lifesaver in some nail-biting moments. Another useful method I found to get past areas, which was a bit more scarce, was leveling up. If you were at 1 HP, then leveled up, that party member would have full HP. So it can be useful holding on to a level up until a combat scenario. Once the ignition codes are located and the power is restored, some doors open, and we see this behemoth.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, we are gonna have to deal with this massive droid. My blaster's only challenge for this game, this encounter was possibly the hardest in the whole game, besides Trace Academy / Core as a whole, which was really strange looking back on it. This run was the complete opposite, with our party members wiping the floor with this clanker. Since we track the Ebon Hawk's ID signature to the polar regions, the team sets off, only to find a squad of HK assassin droids waiting for them. After a quick meet and greet and some close calls, we collect one of the many HK parts we will need to reassemble HK-47. Though in this run he'll be completely useless, as he only used blasters. Now this is when things really start to get interesting. Atris, the Achani warriors, and the fate of the Jedi Council. Atris was one of the many Jedi Masters who condemned our main character after he blindly followed Revan in the Mandalorian Wars. Since that time, especially during Malak's ascent, many Jedi were killed or turned to the dark side. The Jedi forces have slowly dwindled. I really enjoy the dialogue between the two, eye-opening into the state of the galaxy, alongside the relationship that these two share, since there's a hint of love coming from Atris. Isn't that forbidden for the Jedi? All will be revealed in time. Main takeaway from this interaction is that we warn Atris of the impending Sith and retrieve the Ebon Hawk. Before we leave Telos, we get a cutscene with Visors and Darth Nihilus. I'll let this one play out since it's just badass as heck.
I have felt it too, my lord. A disturbance in the Force. It was difficult to make out, my lord. At first it was such a quiet thing. I did not notice it. But now I wonder if it has always been there. I merely could not hear it before. The sound built so slowly, Yet when you listen for it, you can make out the strains, even over the background life of the universe. Do you feel it as if you are the darkness in which all life dies, my lord? All life exists to feed your power. And my life is yours. I beg you, please. Let me die. Yes, this disturbance echoes through the Force. I can follow it to its source and bring it to you. I will leave at once, my lord.
Aboard the M and Hawk, P3 reveals that it was able to retrieve data from Atris's databanks, specifically on our main character's exile. Atton, Kreia, and the others gather close to watch. Our actions during the war were questioned, and ultimately they were deemed too extreme for the Jedi Order, resulting in us being exiled. These are the Jedi Masters that we will need to rescue across the galaxy. We are going to restore our connection to the Force, and learn more about the Council's decisions. Essentially, this is the main objective across Kotor 2 as a whole, similarly to getting the star map fragments in the first game. Our first stop in order to locate the Jedi Masters is on Dantooine. Generally, I found Dantooine to be the best location to visit early game, as most encounters are very straightforward, though there were more than a few exceptions. Compare this to going to Korriban first, and well, it's doable, but you are not in for a pleasant experience. Initially, I went through the Kunda settlement, speaking with the NPCs, and getting a lay of the land. Few NPCs had some useful side quests that would yield high enough credits and XP, both of which are highly valuable. Then speak with the administrator, who after some time reveals that she was in contact recently with Master Vrook, though he has apparently disappeared, and has the administrator worried. He tells us to look in the ruins of the Jedi Enclave, so let's head over there. As we go towards and into the Jedi Enclave, slaying the Kinrath creatures along the way, let's talk about light side and dark side mastery, then I'll rant for a bit. In these KOTOR runs, I like to aim for one side, light or dark. It's meant to spice the video up a bit, make memes, references, roleplay, and so on. Basically, it's just another way of me being able to have some fun. Another reason is that mastery of one side will greatly boost the player's stats, giving 3+ levels depending on the class selected at the beginning. This is something that can be obtained fairly easily, but can be hard to maintain, especially with the choices that are given to the player frequently. Last time we played through Kotor 2, I did a dark-sided blasters only run. It was awesome to see those Sith eyes as enemies cowered at our name. This run we have been, and are going to be as light-sided and morally right as possible, embracing the teachings of the Jedi. One reason that I really enjoy doing a light-sided run will become evident later on once we speak with Visors. Every time I play through the KOTOR games, the Force Unleashed series, and many of the other popular Star Wars games, it really makes me question Disney and their handling of Star Wars. Every time I enter the Star Map Fragment temples in KOTOR 1, it truly feels like this awesome experience that's meant to be in Star Wars. KOTOR 2 with the Sith Temple on Duxon and the Jedi Enclave, which we are currently investigating. The Force Unleashed 1's atmosphere as Starkiller went from planet to planet, made me yearn for more and more things like that. With new technology exponentially being produced each year, slowly enhancing things as we know it, it's surprising that another game and or movie hasn't been made to this degree. One thing that has stuck with me has been this awesome fan film that I watch from time to time. It has some awesome visuals, and more importantly, an entertaining story. Though it's all in German, so I had to use subtitles. I'd highly recommend to watch after this, as they have some really cool shots of Vader going through these Sith temples. Inside the Enclave, there were many side objectives that yielded some decent loot and XP. Finding the remains of the scavengers, especially the one with the will. This can be changed so that the player chooses who gets her stuff, either scavengers or us. We go with the light-sided option of not messing with her final words. Jorn can be saved or killed here. As his quest is tied to another NPC we spoke with previously at Kunda's headquarters, I pressed Jorn for the Vaporator modulator, and we were able to work something out. Main reason for coming here was finding information on Vrook's whereabouts, which can be located after speaking to the Disciple. Since we are the male character, the Disciple is not able to be in our party. A tablet entry then reveals his unfortunate fate. Master Vrook being held by mercenaries, we are going to need to act quickly if we are to save him. To the Kinrath Caves we go! There are a few useful things in the caves. Regarding a melee only run, lightsaber crystals can be obtained here, some having great benefits. Why, you might ask? Well, Kreia reveals Revan once passed through here, imbuing his power upon them. Though we don't currently have a lightsaber, we will be getting one very shortly. In the end, we find the mercenaries deep within the cave, holding Master Vrook hostage. They're a very close battle. The medpacks were pretty depleted by this point. Rook scolds us as a greater threat is unveiled, an impending attack on the Kunda HQ by the mercenaries. After some back and forth, he says that he will answer any and all questions we may have about exile, his time away, and so on, but only after we defend the town. Speaking with the Administrator, Master Vrook, and Captain Zeron, we make a plan before the mercenaries strike as they still need to gather their forces. If we're going to make a stand and protect as many people as possible, we need to be ready. First was making sure the turrets were online, targeting hostiles only. Healing injured militia troops turned the tide in our favor, giving light side XP to the player. Subsequently was engaging the droids, turning on their shields and having them in patrol mode. While this doesn't guarantee our success, it will greatly enhance our chances. Lastly, we speak with the men, giving them a rousing and heartfelt speech. With the men's morale enhanced, we then wait till the enemy comes to us. Volleys of blaster bolts and grenades litter the battlefield outside as the mercenaries press their offensive. The men of Kunda lay their lives down protecting the settlement. Ultimately, they breach the building. This is when it's revealed that a disciple of Malak is leading the charge, bragging about his resistance to force abilities. Well, bub, not gonna help you in this one because we're boasting that high melee damage. I would be lying if I said this fight was difficult, mostly because of that preparation done beforehand and Master Vrook being a beast on the court. In the end, the Administrator thanks us for protecting them, saying that people here will forever remember the Jedi helping. The people here lost faith in the Jedi after Kotor once events, so the small action restored a little bit of that. She offers a reward to us, but we decline, asking for her to use it to rebuild Kunda instead. Master Vrook speaks proudly on our ability to defend the town and allows us to ask some questions. We're able to grow from this encounter, learning more about the Council's decision. Then he shows us a lightsaber form. I haven't really talked about these yet since we haven't gotten a lightsaber, but expect me to mention this later on.
Hello there.
There's a lot to unpack with Visors in her assassination attempt. She's a Merluka, a race now extinct as something destroyed her planet. What happened? Why is she the only survivor of her race? Why attack us? Let's not spoil the fun quite yet. Handmaiden and Anne do not trust her, and question why we keep her alive on the ship as she attacked us once before. At last, we build and acquire our first lightsaber, once we speak with Bowder. This is a moment every player cherishes as it's the next step in their journey. For us, it means higher damage, increased critical damage, and better status effects. Initially, I chose the lightsaber that was best for me, the color that I enjoyed the most. I figured a double-bladed purple lightsaber was going to be badass as heck, and I could not resist its allure. Next came upgrading the thing, choosing to use the better and higher costing parts for this lightsaber. As our main character will be alone in some later sections of the game, prepping now will only make those sections much more manageable, since enemies by that point will deal well over 100 plus damage per hit. One of our saving graces is that we will now have the light side mastery, as we performed enough good actions thus far. As a result, we now have +3 levels of strength, resulting in a +7 modifier. Yeah, that is very, very worthwhile. The next stop on our journey is Onderon. Well, actually Duxon, since the Onderon military noticed the Ebon Hawk. The ship is notoriously known by many. On Onderon, we will be able to find another Jedi Master, but first things first, repair the Ebon Hawk, investigate the surrounding area, and don't get killed. There are a few things to talk about as we walk the Duxon landscape, feeding the wildlife, and interacting with the Mandalorians. If this is a melee only run, you'd expect me to use Jedi party members since lightsabers typically deal more damage than a vibroblade. The biggest issue is when party members' turns aren't chosen, they will act based on the situation. Jedi and Sith will often buff other party members. This is a no-go in this run as per the rules. I mentioned this earlier and wanted to talk further about that. Now this isn't to say that I never used the main character alongside another Jedi, but if I did, I had to pause, making sure melee options were the only ones chosen. Since our main character acquired a lightsaber and we have collected a few lightsaber techniques, let's talk about them. As the player goes through the game, they will unlock new lightsaber fighting styles. Each will have pros and cons for specific scenarios. For example, a Taru style is better for fighting single opponents that are not blaster users, versus a Xian form is meant for multiple enemies that are blaster users. While these bonuses may seem small, they definitely add up, greatly enhancing the main character. Most of them will be useful in the run, but there are very few specifically for force powers and FP regen, which is not helpful in the slightest. What's your favorite lightsaber fighting form? For me, I always found Mace Windu's Vibe Pad to be the most interesting. Once we speak with Mandalore, we agree to help each other. Only when we complete a few tasks for him, he will bring us to Onderon. Went around the Mandalorian camp, speaking with NPCs, looking for tasks that would impress Mandalore. Then spoke with the merchant who had some great options. The nice thing about this area is that there's a lab station and workbench fairly close together. I was able to buy some items, then break them down into parts that would be more beneficial. One quite hilarious thing that I mentioned in the Blasters Only challenge was that I compared Mandalore to Canderous from the first game, since they had very similar personal abilities, since each character has some unique feature about their kit. After I posted that video, a commenter pointed out that it was in fact Canderous. Going through the game again, they definitely throw a few hints that it is him, playing Ordo and so on. Well, it's funny to look back on it. Sooner or later, when enough tasks were collected, the team head out to the camp. One of the first tasks that we will complete is by collecting 3 phase pulse converters, each swallowed by different Canuck creatures. Don't tell me how they still work. Afterwards, I spoke with Kelborn, one of Mandalore's scouts. He said that nearby ships were detected landing and we should investigate, as they must not find the Mandalorian camp. He heads east as we go west. A battle breaks out across various choke points. In some ways, it does feel a bit heartless since these people were just trying to survive, but with the camp needing to remain secure, no survivors are allowed. When all is said and done, Kelborn thanks us for his services, says he will relay our efforts to Mandalore. Then we dealt with the Zakeg, a legendary beast on Duxon, many of whom have fallen to its ferocious claws. Grabbing its ear upon defeat, we are now able to show the Mandalorians of our victory. Lastly, we speak with the troubled Mandalorian, who has found himself in a predicament, Nox swarming him as he ran out of ammo. Defeating the nearby enemies and speaking with him will allow him to go back to the camp. There's something terrifying and great about getting older. Memories are what makes things special. Recently, I found myself trying to go back to recapture some of those timeless instances. Old Black Ops Zombies, Battlefield 4, Episode 1 Pod Racer, Bakugan, and the list goes on, many of which I've done challenges on or played off stream for personal enjoyment. While many of these games are far from perfect, I find myself often thinking back to those times, wondering, dang, it was really such a good run. Destiny 1, I didn't realize how good I had it then. The amount of teamwork, communication, and fun was on a whole nother level that the second game could never recapture. Every time I play through Kotor, I find myself returning to that feeling. Joy and wonder. Then you remember your first playthrough and all of its ups and downs. Expedition 33 is such a great example. One reason why your first playthrough will always be the most memorable than the subsequent ones. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts below. Do you agree with my thoughts? What game do you remember having the best golden era? I'll admit I'm probably more sentimental than most about this, but hey, it reminds me I'm human. Because we have retrieved the parts eaten by the Canucks, defeated the enemy forces from the shuttle, defeated the Zakeg, and rescued the Mandalorian, we're now able to complete the quest lines, receiving a large amounts of XP and credits. Most importantly, earning the respect of Mandalore. As Mandalore prepares the shuttle bound for Onderon, Freya approaches him, making veiled threats and showing her knowledge of the Mandalorian people. Why does she do this? Isn't she supposed to be a Jedi? Well, stick around as we still have a lot to uncover. Unfortunately, some Sith assassins invade the camp, so we are forced to act. This section has always been super framey for me. Thankfully, I'm not using any force powers, as that definitely would have had a chance to crash the game. At this point, we've crashed I'd say maybe 2 to 3 times, and so it's been nice having the saves be often and frequent. In the end, it was over quicker than you can say Bantha Poodoo 5 times in a row. Arriving in Izes, the capital city of Onderon, we see one of the Jedi Masters speak with the Queen. Uvar and Talia debate over the attack above the planet and General Vaklu, power-hungry general, wanting to take over. Something that I always found fascinating with these games is how they have a main weapon that is not useful for that character's kit. In KOTOR 1, Mission Veo had a vibroblade, which scales with strength, but she had a high dexterity build for blasters at base. Mandalore is the opposite, starting with a blaster and having a high strength level at base, which will be great for us since we need high strength levels from all characters. It's one of the many examples the game tries to undermine the player. I remember watching this short from a YouTuber a few months ago talking about this exact same thing. I showcased it on screen now alongside linking it down below if you are interested. Going through the docks, town square, and cantina, I spoke with the various NPCs, bought some useful items from merchants, and competed in the swoop races. The swoop races are some of my favorite minigames in this, and it really brings me back to that pod racer revenge feeling. It also helps that you get a ton of credits and XP for becoming the champion. The main goal for us is getting in contact with Master Kavar and either aiding or deceiving the Queen. In order to get in contact, speak with a local who mentions that the man we need was convicted of murder, and the only way we will be able to speak with him is if we somehow clear his name. We then play detective for a bit, interviewing witnesses and friends of the victim and supposed perpetrator. A bit of back and forth, uncovering the truth bit by bit. In the end, after a lengthy but fun questline, we're now able to speak with a doctor who gets us in contact with Master Kavar. Subsequently, when Master Kavar enters the cantina, our main character and allies converse. He finds that we keep strange company, especially when he realizes a Mandalorian is with us. The subject changes to our exile, and he wishes to give us an explanation when we are rudely interrupted by Vaklu's troops. Kavar runs off as he knows he needs to protect the Queen, so we are left to deal with this mess. Blaster bolts go everywhere as Visors and our main character parry them away with their lightsabers, only to follow up with a slash attack. Mandalore, having the same plot armor as Boba Fett in his own show, can get hit often as the Beskar provides high damage resistance. Yeah, I get it's Beskar, but bro, there's so many gaps in their armor. That was one of the many things that got me with that show. We're then forced out of Onderon as the Vaklu soldiers relentlessly hunt us down, even as we leave the town square. We'll have to return here later. Because we had to leave Onderon and Duxon, said it would be best now to head towards Nar Shaddaa, my least favorite part of the game. Why, you might ask? Well, I'll get to that shortly. The numerous bounty hunters come together as Godo says no harm will come to us or our companions, at least for the time being. HK units, a Wookiee, and Twi'leks are some of the many hunters we will have watching us closely. Once the Ebon Hawk lands, our main character and the team talk about Nar Shaddaa, and how we should go about finding the Jedi Master. Since this planet is teeming with people and alien species, we may have a hard time locating him. Visors and the Handmaiden argue, as the Handmaiden doesn't trust her intentions. The argument is broken up when the Dockmaster comes to our ship demanding answers, as he expected a different ship. Making sure to not pull Qui-Gon Jinn, I opted to persuade rather than force persuade.
I'm a Toydarian. My tricks don't work on me. Only money.
Since it is nearly May, I want to talk about the upcoming May marathon that I'll be doing. On the Twitch channel, I'll be doing a bunch of Star Wars related challenge runs. From the Kotor series, using fists only, to Battlefront 2's Conquest No Deaths. They're going to be some fun but tough feats to conquer. Make sure to click the link above and in the description, and follow for when I'm live. I'm really excited to share this with you guys, and hope to see you there. Going around the nearby shops, I found someone that could help change the Ebon Hawk's ID signature, as this would help us avoid unpleasant surprises. As he does not have the right equipment, once we are able to get it from, we will accommodate our request. Now, Nar Shaddaa may be fun and enjoyable place for most players, but for me, it just reminds me of the painstaking time I had in my first and subsequent playthroughs. This is mostly because I found Nar Shaddaa to be the glitchiest section of the game. In one instance, in a past playthrough, a character lost all clothing and his body morphed into some godskin looking ass dude. The frequent freezes happen more often here, so time is lost, especially if a save wasn't recent. While I do enjoy the quest lines inside the refugee sector, is a maze to get through. Don't even get me started about Godo's ship. As we still have a lot of the game to go through, let's talk about melee only so far as the story progresses in the background. Compared to a blasters only run, melee only is a lot more straightforward, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Far from it, in fact. While we do have high damage, similar to the blasters run, we're unable to deal with groups of enemies effectively, compared to using force lightning or other force abilities. Carefully leveling up characters and selecting the right party members has been crucial for success. Mandalore is super tanky and works well resisting damage. Visors for high lightsaber damage, though it does mean I really have to manage turns. Spawning out the weapons has been important for high damage and making sure we are getting the most out of them. Higher damage range, base damage increase, and stun status effects are some of the many effects that greatly enhance these weapons. Similarly, armor modifiers are integral. I found the regeneration modifier to be the best for this challenge, as it would continually heal the player. As we are using no force abilities such as healing, this is a slight bonus for us. Swapping lightsaber forms at optimal times will help with an encounter, but doesn't decrease success. Like most games, the difficulty of enemies will only get harder as we progress through. With us being about halfway, we're on the cusp of true damage range of enemies. We'll talk about this again near the end of the video, breaking everything down. For now, we befriend Mira, beat heaps of bounty hunters, get a strange task from Godo, speak with another Jedi Master. It says Kyle shows us another lightsaber form, which will help against critical strikes and deflecting blaster bolts. He says he will meet up with the other Jedi Masters on Dantooine and will wait for our arrival, though we still have 2 other Jedi Masters to save. On the ship, we can see our allies conversing with one another. Mandalore and Bowdur speak on past battles, arguing on the moral implications of them. It's interesting hearing both sides and how in the end, they ultimately come together hoping to be a part of something better. Then we fix HK-47, one of the more hilarious characters in either game. The one downside to a melee-only run is that droids are completely off the table, since they can't use them. Because we had received word that Master Kavar needed our assistance, our next stop was Duxon. At the Mandalorian camp, we were explained the situation. Isis is at its breaking point with either General Vaklu or the Queen being in power. Basically, things are urgent and we are needed immediately. Freya senses something strange on Duxon's surface and says that we will need to investigate, ultimately splitting our forces in 2. The first squad will investigate and stop whatever plot General Vaklu has planned on Duxon. The second will help Master Kavar and the Queen and Isis. We decided it would be best to put Visors, Atten, and Mandalore in a squad together. Visors would have higher damage with a lightsaber, Mandalore would act as a tank, and Atten would revive in combat if he fell. This section of the game, and then Korriban as a whole, are probably my 2 favorite areas of this game. I really enjoy exploring tombs and crypts, because that's one reason I beat the newer Tomb Raider series with bows only on the hardest difficulty. The team push outside the Sith temple, troopers and Sith acolytes try stopping our team. This is when it's really evident how challenging the difficulty can be, massively damaging our team members. Optimizing turns and menu heals was crucial here. Inside the temple, it is revealed that this is the tomb of a fallen Jedi, but much of that time has tried to remain buried and forgotten by the people. In each of the side chambers, there is a test for the player. If they pass, they will be rewarded with permanent buffs. Failure will cause the dark side to surge through them. As this is a light-sided run, we don't want that. Completing the puzzles further inside the temple will open a doorway to where Freedon Nod is buried. 3 Sith Masters attempt to complete a dark ritual. Then they attempt to seduce Visors with the dark side of the Force, though she remembered our teachings and the Jedi way, refusing their offer. Battle breaks out. I would say that it was a piece of cake. That would be in some backwards dimension because damn did they smack us around. This was one of the many instances where things were very close. In the end, we emerged victorious, though that was just half the battle. Switching to the team meant to breach Isis, we end up landing in the middle of the town square.
But you know what I always say, speak softly and drive a big tank.
Once we were able to get to the palace, a short cutscene plays with the Queen and Jedi Master. Kavar feels us close by through the Force and is hopeful. The palace was hectic, both inside and outside its tower structure. Groups of men littered the place, as
I have a reputation to uphold.
I knew I had to protect the Queen at all costs. None of Vaklu's troops could be left standing. Pushing our way through into the palace's walls, I swiftly defeated the enemies and got into contact with the Queen's guard. Ultimately, it was time to defend the throne room once and for all, opting to not use battle meditation since it is a force power. Team rushed to protect the Queen at all costs. It was a fun fight, but not all that difficult. Sooner or later, with Vaklu defeated, we were given a choice. Let him live, potentially starting another coup years later, or kill him now, becoming judge, jury, and executioner. With the Queen's reign intact, Master Kavar and the Queen thank us for helping. Before parting to Dantooine, he offers to teach us another lightsaber form. The final Jedi Master that we need to rescue is on Korriban. That is our next destination. The team speaks about why a Jedi Master would want to stay here, since this is a place where the dark side is powerful and seducing. Freya says that she will not walk the sands of Korriban, protest that we will have to go without her. We decided to use Mira as we haven't really seen or used her yet. To be honest, looking back at this, it was definitely a bit of a suboptimal choice going with her, as she has a really high dexterity level at base versus strength. Well, regardless, we were still able to get past most enemies. Korriban is one of my favorite locations in both games. It is interesting walking to each of the tombs and learning of the Sith Lords. Freya will speak through the Force, narrating past victories or feats. These are the same tombs the player can explore in the first game, so it was cool to see how over time they were affected. When Revan and the team explored Korriban in the first game, they ultimately destroyed the hierarchy when the master of the school was killed by our hand, so anarchy ensued. Nearby to the tombs, the player is able to enter a nearby cave system. There were a bunch of Shirak creatures that had to be dealt with. Deep within the cave, I ended up discovering something that I've never experienced in my past 2 playthroughs. Since this is my third, I'm still picking up new things from NPCs, items, and so on. This was just a big find for me. I'm surprised that I was not able to enter this tomb before. For those who know, I'd be interested to hear. Do you need to be fully light or dark-sided, or something else? As this is something new, and because I really enjoyed the experience, I want to talk about the narrative and difficult moments. Initially, the main character enters a room where fellow Jedis listen as Malik speaks. He tempts them with war and power. One by one, they join his side, as our character once did many years ago, reiterating the Mandalorian threat and the need to act now. We slowly end up alone. Then each of them charge us, as we decline Malik's offer to act. Our main character ended up getting hurt pretty badly, as they dealt some high damage. But thankfully, by some miracle, we were still alive. This is when we are able to explore the tomb and find some goodies. I want to explore as much as possible. It's like playing Elden Ring and finding some area you haven't been to before, and are just now experiencing it. Even now in Elden Ring, after 30 plus playthroughs, not even including my New Game Plus runs, I still find some little things in each run. This is one reason the Kotor series has been such a staple in the Star Wars franchise, as it has a lot of replayability value. In our next test, we find ourselves reliving a past battle in Duxon. The troops beg us not to push forward, as it would be impossible to survive. Instead of asking the troops to take the mines and flak, we will do it ourselves. As we don't have the mind disabling ability, we're just gonna have to take the damage. I should mention that I did have quite the oof moment. I'm sure by now you can tell how low my health is. Well, I didn't visit a merchant after Duxon, so I decided to just revisit an old save instead of painfully waiting for the health to regenerate from the armor mod. Well, hopefully I will learn from this mistake. Yeah, I didn't. A bit later, I got back to where we were, this time with some actual health. The final mine is cleared, Mandalorians will start charging us. Since we pushed ourselves, the troops are now able to push and help us. This was much easier than Malik and the other Jedis though. It goes to show how our main character had to deal with some harsh decisions in the war. Further in the tomb, we can find the journal from a deceased Jedi. It's interesting finding these journals, then trying to figure out the story behind it, as some of them don't have the full story and have pieces missing and such. Subsequently, we find Kreia, Atten, and the rest of our allies inside the temple. What? How is this possible? Weren't they behind us on the ship? Well, this vision is meant to show the player the dark past they have been dealing with. Our character tries to defuse the situation. Then we see that Kreia has been manipulating us from the start. As a Jedi, we are meant to offer redemption to others, and so a conundrum appears. If we protect Kreia as a Jedi, it means harming our friends. If we try to kill her, it goes against our Jedi ways. I decided to protect Kreia, and this is when the cycle begins. Now we are back to the beginning of the conversation, like a deja vu type moment. That's when I instead chose to let them harm her, but not engage ourselves. When all the characters start saying apathy is death, it felt like some Black Mirror episode or something. Eventually we get to the final test, and see what we would have become if we kept following Revan's path during the war, being consumed by the dark side, a slave to it. We were forced to do battle, and dear golly, this was over a lot sooner than I thought. It was really cool to uncover. This wasn't Revan, but another vision. It's still somewhere out there. With the tomb and trials completed, we are now able to get some awesome rewards. Most notable was Ludo Kresh's sword that's stacked with modifiers. This was really, really awesome. The visions, the architecture of the tomb, enemies were fun as heck. I know in future challenge runs, I'll definitely be going through here again, though bringing some med packs on the first go. Because we still need to find the Jedi Master, I ventured inside the Sith Academy. Cutscene plays with Sion and his Sith assassins, saying that we will only know pain. Going inside the temple, we can see that years abandoned has left this place dilapidated. Went around the deadly creatures and camouflaged assassins. To access more of the temple, we have to complete 2 tests in order to advance. This was not how the player goes about leveling up through the Sith in the first game, but is interesting to mention. First is the written test. Answer some questions about the Sith. If all are answered correctly, training room will open. Starving creatures have been locked up here and are unleashed as a sort of test for us. Ultimately, we failed to defeat them in the allotted time, and so we are sentenced to punishment. This is when we find the Jedi Master, dead and tortured. Since we now realize this is a trap, we rush towards the exit, only to find Darth Sion blocking it. He taunts us, saying we are filled with weakness. Questions why she would follow us. Who? Handmaiden? Visors? Or Kreia? Well, most likely Kreia, as they had that interaction earlier aboard the Republic vessel. Well, at this point in the story, if you haven't played through the game, a lot is left vague. Really enjoy this interaction. It is the climax of Korban, which is a fitting ending, though we soon realize how tough he is, showing his resilience, tenacity, and dark-sided will. In the end, we are forced to flee. Kreia reinforces Sion is powerful, and our time is not yet.
You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
With 3 out of the 4 Jedi Masters saved, a return to Dantooine to relay the unfortunate news found within the Sith Temple on Korban. With the Jedi Enclave fixed, there is some hope that the Jedi can start anew after Malik's bombing. A shocking twist, the Jedi Masters share the dark reality of our situation. We feed off of others through the Force, so with each kill, we grow stronger. Nice way of explaining lore-wise why the player levels up and gets better. Yeah, my first playthrough, I was like, what the heck? Saying this is a big twist is the understatement of the century. But let some of the dialogue play as it is really fascinating. One reason I strongly encourage you to play through the game or check out the VOD's channel to watch it for yourselves. The Jedi Masters try to take our connection to the Force, which causes Kreia to act, revealing her true nature and power. She speaks to our character, saying what she learned. Ultimately, that we didn't choose our path. We did it because we were afraid. When Kreia came to that conclusion, that deception and betrayal rang true. Back aboard the Ebon Hawk, Atten reveals that she deceived the Handmaiden, eventually having the Handmaiden bring Kreia to Atris, the last Jedi. Our character meditates until Visors comes to speak with us. He warns that her old master is waiting for us, then begs us to say, "No, Visors, we gotta take the fight to him." And so we set off for Telos. Inside the academy in the northern region of Telos' surface, the Handmaiden brings Kreia to Atris. Here she seduces Atris with the dark side of the Force, telling her Sith and Jedi are just titles, to give in to her feelings. Atris fights the Handmaiden, using all of her newfound dark-sided strength, taunting and questioning her affection for the main character. Before she is able to end her, we arrive just in time. Conversation turns stale when Atris charges to attack, though we are able to hold our ground, forcing her to retreat inside the Holocron archive. As a Jedi always should, we try offering redemption to her, to no avail. She is desperate to defeat us, as the emotions are clouding her better judgment. Taking mercy on her after defeat explains why she holds onto the Sith holocrons, trying to protect the future. In reality, she succumbed to what she fought against her whole life, as there is a bigger threat on the horizon with Darth Nihilus and Darth Traya, who let her contemplate her actions and our mercy towards her. After speaking with Lieutenant Gren and some of the other notable people we've met across the journey, we push through the Citadel station, taking down Sith assassins and Dark Jedi along the way. Once we make our way onto Nihilus' ship, Mandalore learns that it was this ship that caused them trouble years ago, so some revenge is in order. We're now tasked with planting 4 bombs spread out across the ship. Our main character, Visors, and Mandalore investigate the ship, finding lots of enemies and some useful items. We're basically at that point in the game where everything is going to be dealing the highest damage possible, though it gets even higher on Malachor 5. There is a decent amount to the ship, so I'll mention the more notable moments. When Visors finds herself nearby to her old living quarters, finds it necessary to meditate, ultimately grows from this experience, enhancing her Force connection. As this is useful for Force powers only, it's not at all that useful in this run. It's quite cool to see. Besides setting the bombs, it was really fun engaging with the enemies. As we approach the bridge, harder and harder opponents were seen. Ultimately, we end up at the bridge and come face to face with Nihilus. Face to mask? Well, same thing I guess. He believes the Jedi to be here, but really there isn't. Technically, Atris and our main character aren't. She basically became a Grey Jedi, but more so a Sith, while we were exiled. Frustration builds within Nihilus as we speak the truth. The Kreia has been manipulating all of us. His hunger consumes him, so we are forced to battle. Now the really nice thing is we have 2 super tanky characters, so I still have to watch the health of each character, because he does hit quite hard. Because we are quite leveled, each of the characters have the highest upgraded attacks, such as Master Flurry. This gives them an extra melee attack each turn. The higher upgraded it is, the defense and attack penalty becomes 0, where it is the best choice in my opinion. With Nihilus defeated, Visors curiously wants to find who is under the mask. It is left vague, but even after death, his hunger could be felt. Now we must escape the ship, or it explodes.
Time to abandon ship.
At last, we arrive at Malachor 5, the final area we will go within the melee-only run. As we walk the surface and through Treyas Academy, let's talk about the run as a whole, reflecting and analyzing what we've uncovered. Melee weapons were the only weapons allowed in the run. As such, it was interesting seeing which ones were best, both for Jedi and non-Jedis. Lightsabers generally dealt higher damage, but vibra blades and so on still did adequate damage. Mods for weapons and armor have helped us tip the scales in battle. Getting insane bonus damage and increased damage range made each encounter slightly easier. The regeneration modifier on the armor has been a lifesaver. We'll see another reason why in a second. Because we made restrictions on implants, visors, gauntlets, shields, and belt modifiers, it has made the run much more challenging. Shields, for instance, help to negate damage, which is great against ranged blaster users. Since we haven't been able to use any of them, it means playing things much more cautiously. Force powers are amazingly useful in any KOTOR run, whether it's to heal, buff teammates, or debuff enemies. It's all super nice. With no force power powers, more med packs had to be bought, which meant having enough resources at all times. Blasters only in both Kotor games was extremely difficult, more so in the first game, but melee only has been much more straightforward, even with all the extra rules to hinder ourselves. Even though it's much more straightforward, doesn't mean it's a walk in the park, as it will be evident in Trey's Academy. Blasters and melee weapons have their pros and cons, but I'd say that melee weapons have an easier time, as we've found through both of these challenges. Both are able to get high damage through optimal leveling and workbench upgrading, but melee weapons seem to be much more consistent. Comparing the blaster and melee only runs in the first Kotor game, melee only proved to be easier as it took less time to complete the game. Now that could be caused by a number of factors, but I like to think it's melee weapons beating blasters. In Kotor 2, it was the opposite, which will be evident later on. This run ended up taking longer than the blaster's run. Malachor 5 is such an awesome place, but definitely is the hardest area in the game, from the beasts that roam the surface to the multiple dark Jedi inside the Academy. Saying this area is tough would be an understatement. Enemies hit high damage numbers often here, and attack in groups. Other areas such as the Sith Temple and Duxon really made our allies work for the win, similarly to us being inside the Academy and Korriban. Now there's plenty else that I could talk about here. Could go more in depth on the weapons, attachment modifiers, and so on, but I think that would be overkill. The last thing I will say is that I wish I brought more med packs. With Darth, Traya, and Sion reuniting once more, the Academy was on high alert for our arrival, so we were swarmed as we pushed through. At the end of the Academy, we can find Darth Sion waiting for us, hoping to squash us once and for all. Why does he join her after everything? Well, like most Sith relationships, he is just a pawn to her. Throughout the fight, we were able to corrode Sion's will and constitution, a way of in-game showing his bond deteriorating with Kreia. Even once we defeat him, he rises once again, and again, and again. This is where you can really see the damage. So getting two-shotted is not entirely out of the equation. This was when I really started to notice how low on heals I was, and unfortunately, it ended up costing me a lot. The players out of combat, they will regenerate health, so we may have to cheese things a bit later on. In the end, Sion questions why she chose us instead of him. Kreia hates the Force, and so in turn hates Sion. Now we have one last thing to do: beat Darth Traya at the core. Coming face to face with Kreia, we question past events, such as Atris and our allies. Then she says the dark truth, with there always needing to be a Darth Traya in the galaxy, a betrayer, manipulating us to keep the Lords of the Sith from condemning the galaxy with death. The Jedi, even with the darkest enemy, would always try and offer redemption. So that is what I did. Kreia in a way respects us trying, but knows things are too far gone, so a battle ensues. Yeah, Kreia absolutely hit me super hard at the beginning. This was when I was fully out of med packs. As per the rules, with no force heals, I'm forced to cheese a bit in order to progress. Using my COD Zombies training experience, I carefully lured Kreia away until she was de-aggroed, then proceeded to slowly heal. Slowly being the key word here. I'll fast forward this section so you can see how brutal it was. In the future, I will definitely be remembering to stock up before arriving on Telos. Let me know if there's a good merchant when you arrive a second time, as this would greatly help in future challenge runs. It was a game of cat and mouse, with our main character being the mouse. Sooner or later, we defeat Darth Traya. With Malachor 5 about to be destroyed, we hop aboard the Ebon Hawk and leave this rock once and for all. The final cutscene plays as everyone safely flies away. Well, everyone except Kreia. This has been Kotor 2 with melee only. It was a fun and challenging run. I learned some new things, such as that temple and tomb on Korriban, and which armor modifiers were best. The Kotor series is one of, if not my favorite Star Wars games of all time. From the story, dialogue, and gameplay, I find it incredibly awesome to go through each time. With melee only, things were tough, but more than manageable. With blasters and melee only completed, we have to ask ourselves the next question. Is it possible to beat these games with force powers only? With fists only? We'll be on the lookout for the next series of videos. In this run, we tried being as light-sided as possible, often doing charitable actions rather than evil choices. Aten and Mandalore were solid allies during the run, offering great damage and survivability. Visors was great for having that lightsaber damage, though I hesitantly used her, and made sure to watch her turns. I really enjoy making these videos. One thing you might notice is that these are longer videos than usual compared to my other challenge runs. Because of me covering the game more than a few times, I want to pose a question. As these games are quite large story-wise, I like to talk about the story and challenge side by side. This usually results in a 20+ page script more often than not. I really do enjoy writing this way, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts below. Would you rather me purely focus on the challenge in the future, or going the story but mentioning some parts if necessary? I'll be posting posting a poll when this video is released, so I'd greatly appreciate your responses. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. It really means the world to me. I enjoy entertaining. Hopefully it made you immersed in the Kotor world and this challenge. Let me know if you have any Kotor challenges you'd like to see me attempt. Future, I plan to do fists only and force powers only for both games, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. This greatly helps to support me and the channel, alongside pushing the video to others who may be interested. Try to do something kind for someone today, whether it's a small or large gesture. This is your boy Skilled Fawn, and I'm out.